everybody. This is Michelle Moross, and if you're stumbling across MentalShift and you're like, who is this lady? My name is Michelle Moross. I'm an international speaker. I'm an author. I coach people to speak and find their message and get out there. And if you want to know more, find me on social media. Connect with me because I answer. I'd love to connect with you. Now, I also happen to have this podcast, and I love to bring people on to MentalShift because Reach Your Full Potential is the full name. MentalShift, Reach Your Full Potential. And what I do is I talk to people about their stories and what they do and why they do what they do. And today I have one of my favorite people in the world with me. His name is Bob Kittridge. And he's kind of he's my mentor. He's one of the guys who helped me get out of my own head and into the space that I was supposed to be in as I fought, scratching and screaming, no, it's not for me. This is Bob Kittridge. If you've ever heard any of my stories about how I came out of my brain injury and how I found John Maxwell, the John Maxwell team, and how I became a coach, this is the guy. It's his fault. And it's a good reason to be at fault. So please welcome my friend and mentor, Bob Kittridge.
Well, thanks, Michelle, and I will take that. I will take that responsibility, and I'm happy that we met at that Toastmasters convention. Actually, is you sat in one of my breakout sessions, and I remember coming up after me, going, "I need help." Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, it's been a great journey to watch you make the shifts you've made. And where you are today.
Yeah, you helped me get unstuck multiple times. And I always tell people, even coaches need coaches. And when you get stuck, you need someone. No one is a lone boat out there. If you are, find someone. And, Bob is one of my someones. Now, I have to say, and I get to say, look up Bob, okay? Because he's just got this way of looking from outside of the box and seeing your situation differently from the rest of what you see. And he's got his business called FocusPoint Solution. And you can find him at FocusPointSolution.com. That's focus, the word focus, F-O-C-U-S, point, P-O-I-N-T, solution, SOLUTION.com. And the reason I'm saying that is because he teaches this class that I went to, and actually I have it on my wall, but I'm not going to show it to you because the rest of my office is kind of messy. But I have this picture that I worked on at one of your workshops of what I want to do and where I'm going and what's rooting me. And I have this giant tree that I drew at your workshop. Tell us about what you do in that workshop I'm talking about, because I'm blanking on the name, but it was powerful.
Yeah, well, that workshop that you went through is called Blueprint for Success. And it really is based, and this is where I focus on, is your story. So if you think about, for us, everybody, we all have a story. And that story was written before we could even write our own story. And it was written by our parents, our grandparents, our friends, our family, and really people that cared about us. But at the time in that part of our life, we couldn't write that story. All we could do is take in what was given to us. And that probably worked for a while. But what happens is we get to be adults and the true you starts to come out and our desires come out. And sometimes, most of the time, that story doesn't match or empower you to move towards that emerging future. And many times it actually holds you back. And that's, so the workshop that you participated in, and I just did one before our big COVID shutdown, we had 10 people in that workshop. It was so funny because it was one gal came to learn about her business. That, she was going to make the changes in her business. And about the first hour in, all of a sudden she got that it wasn't about her business, right? That it was, and the interesting part is this gal had done, and this was an invitation only. I invited I wanted certain energy in the room. So I knew everybody, I knew their stories, I knew, and she walked away thinking, she thought she had handled all this stuff, right?
Surprise.
Yeah, exactly, right? So we peeled back the layers a little bit more and went a little bit deeper, and she came out with an amazing new story. And that's what we do and again, it's not the story, It's the attachment to the story that we have. So for me, my story was I'd never make a difference. Like that was my story. And that comes from a long time ago and some really trauma I had, my ex and my stepfather. But I lived many years really trying to prove that I could make a difference. 30 years as a firefighter. I was a rescuer, but it was never good enough. I always was trying to prove myself that I could make a difference. So here over the last 8 months, I've really started to understand that I don't have to prove anything to anybody, that I get to write my new story about my emerging future and then be that person. But it's my pen now that's in my hand writing my story. And I don't know, I don't know how many of those workshops I did, but it's interesting when you facilitate something versus all of a sudden, and this last one, there was some breakthroughs for me in that one. Even though I was the facilitator, it was really interesting because all of a sudden it was like, boom, hit me that, there's a part I'm still hanging on to.
So I've gone through 2 of your Blueprint for Successes, and each time something completely different emerged. So part of me is like, do I wait and go to the next one so that I can grow to the next level? Or because it shifts, everything starts shifting. Once you start walking into your emerging future and what you expect to be there, it shifts and it's something else. And it's right now, it's with me, I know it's merging into something else right now. It's like, oh, I really need to have another one of those.
Well, and you're right. And I've had people say, oh, well, I've already done that. I don't need to go back. I said, well, come on back. You've done 3, I think, haven't you? Right? I think 2 or 3.
I think it's 2.
Yeah, 2.
But I only have 2 teachers.
And so, there was one gentleman I've had, I think he's been through it. I remember his first time, engineer, right? So when he got down to the last part of putting his blueprint together, everything was, I remember he came to me and said, do you have a ruler? I'm like, a ruler? Because he had to have everything, straight and angles. And what he saw from that was his life too, was everything had to be. And so the second time he went through it, he came up with an amazing picture of kind of like yours, the tree and the roots and all the stuff. And there wasn't a straight line in anything, but his life absolutely has changed because of that. And that's that mind shift based on our story that we hold on to. And many people have no idea what the story is. That's the sad part about it is we tell it every day. We look ourselves in the mirror and tell it every day. We tell it to other people every day. But yet we don't realize the hold that story has on us.
Yeah, it's an amazing breakthrough. So please, and we've now heard a little bit of what you do with Blueprint for Success, but what does FocusPoint Solutions do? What do you do for your clients?
Well, it was really interesting. I've been through some changes here this year with some different stuff in my life. And at the end of last year, both some health challenges, relationship challenges, and some different things, is I was trying to figure a word for the year. And I kept, and I'm struggling. What's my word for 2020? And what's my word? And I'm like, God, would you just focus on this? And all of a sudden I'm like, oh, got it. And so what I was able to sit down and look at the past year and a half is I had tried to do everything.
Oh.
I had so many programs. I had so many things. I had so much stuff that I was actually not doing anything. And so what I do is help you focus for your success for your emerging future. Now I do that through coaching. I do that through, I've got an assessment system I use that really discovers who you are at different levels. So I've got different things that I can lay in place to really be able to figure out who you are to move forward, not who you are in your past.
Perfect. Now I was curious about that because I found myself doing that the same thing. And once you start really focusing in on one area, everything else that you thought you needed to keep paying attention to falls into place. When you find that strength, you find that power, everything else radiates off of it. And yes, thank you so much for your assistance.
Yeah. And it's, you know, in depending on your behavioral style, depending on that is that, you know, there's shiny object syndrome, and I'm a high I on the disc scale. And so I'm like, ooh, look, oh, squirrel, ooh, look. And I've had to really sit now and step back and look at that. And I've got a coaching client I just took on that's the same way. And what the whole point of this is that she has no vision. She has no vision of what the emerging future looks like, so that everything that comes up looks great, right? It looks great, but she's bouncing like a pinball, you know, a BB in a boxcar all over the place because she has no direction to go.
I like to say, you have to set your GPS for some place, or you will just randomly, you know, wander around. And it
Exactly.
doesn't, as long as you've got that endpoint, you can find that endpoint in multiple directions, different roads, as long as you've got the endpoint. Other than that, you're just going to be spinning in one spot.
Well, and that's the part of the blueprint for success is vision, right? Those without vision perish. And so if you don't have that clarity of vision, I've got one of my coaching clients right now, he's on about his fourth iteration of his vision, and he's getting better, right? But, you know, we write visions as what we don't want. That's usually the first cut, which is that's not the good way to do it. Then we write visions of better or more, which is, again, not clarifying enough. And it's fun to watch him go through, but he's now taking his construction business, and in this time, like this COVID right now, he's busier right now than he has been, because he knows what he wants to do. He's got a vision of what he wants to achieve. And he knows when to say yes, and he now knows when to say no.
That's huge.
And that's huge. That's huge. So yeah, and we're working together on how to kind of look at some things, positioning when all this is over. How do we take this business then really to the next level?
Well, I'm going to bring up something because I just had someone we both know quite well, Paul Sheely, on the MentalShift podcast. And he said something that kind of blew my mind. It was so simple. I always talk about having a positive mindset. So do you. And he said, well, break down the word positive versus negative. And I said, what do you mean by break it down? He goes, posy. Posy means open possibilities. Neggy means to remove them. So when you're saying someone to be positive, you don't want them to be happy, happy, joy, joy. You want them to be open to what can emerge. And if they're negative, they have a negative mindset, they are closed to what will emerge, and therefore it does not emerge. And so when people like us who are talking about mindset and say, you know, write that in a positive tone, what we mean is don't smile about it, be open to what can happen.
Yes, and possibility, open to possibility.
Yeah, yep. I'm like, oh, well, I never connected it, but yes. always learning.
And that's so funny, because if we think about, if we're really able to step back and look at what we create our life. Most people create it on the negative because that's how they think.
Avoidance.
Let's look at COVID right now. Let's look at the panic that's happened. Let's look at the stuff that's happened. And it was so interesting. I was in the ER the other day with just some minor health issues. And I asked the nurse, I said, so how's it going in here? And she goes, well, it's really calmed down now that people aren't in here every time they have a runny nose and think they have COVID, right? Because people were panicking. Yes. They were that kind of thing. So, but if you really get that we can create that future, because we do. We create it positively through possibility, or we create it. I mean, how many times have you or anybody on this call, right, have said, oh, I knew that was going to happen. And it did. Well, how'd you know it was going to happen? Because you thought it. You had that, and guess what happened? Now, whether that happened as positive or whether that happened as negative is an interesting concept. But once you get that, that's a huge, huge thing once you really get it. But I'll tell you, Michelle, the hardest part of that is probably accepting that control piece, accepting that greatness.
Well, because the first thing you want to say is, I'm not that special.
I'm not that special. I'm not
There's
that.
no way. There's no way I'm in control of that. Someone else is guiding that, because there is no way I would ever let that happen to my life. Well, how about all the times you've said to yourself, ugh, I don't know why I'm even doing this. I'm just going to fail anyways. And then you fail and you see, I knew I was going to fail. Well, because you told yourself you were going to fail. So we do bring things about without even knowing we're doing it. That's why when this whole quarantine thing happened, one of the first things I did is I got online. I started doing live Zoom calls and inviting people on to talk. And the reason I did this, and you're gonna follow with me, is we manifest what we desire. And the news kept saying we are in trying times. These are very trying times.
Right.
Just think, the entire planet is saying these are trying times. These are difficult times. And I thought, we as a globe are manifesting more trying times. So I wanted to go out there and say, okay, people, we need to shift this. These aren't trying times. Let's shift it. These are trying times. Such a very easy thing to flip. These are not trying. These are times to try. This is time to experiment. This is explore something new. Do something positive, something that will uplift you. What did you always want to do in these days when you said you didn't have enough time? Now you have time. Go find it. And you want to work on your health, then do it. Now you have the time to try. So these are trying times.
Absolutely.
Because my big fear was we are manifesting negativity at a global scale.
Oh my gosh.
And then when people start saying there's earthquakes here, there's locusts in Africa, there's fires they said, what's next? I said, please don't ask that question.
Yeah.
Because Mother Nature's doing hold my beer. Let me show you. And so I said, we need to stop that, because as a globe, we're manifesting something else. So let's start smiling, let's connecting. And I'm even changing the social distancing word. I don't call it social distancing, because I swear I've been online talking to more people than I've ever spoken to ever since I've been locked down on March 15th. So with me, it's not social distancing. It's actually socially bringing us together. It's physical distancing.
Right.
So I'm shifting my mindset, mental shift, that we are physically distanced, but coming closer together socially.
And look at last night, I was sitting here last night. It was such a nice night, and the windows were open, and the full moon last night, and all of a sudden I'm listening, and I'm hearing people howling, and I'm like, what? Because somewhere I missed that. I missed the memo on that one, right? And I walked outside. I'm like, what in the world? And I mean, we wouldn't do things like that if it wasn't for, and that's a social connection.
Huge. My whole neighborhood, they did a dance hour. At 6 o'clock, everyone came out on their front porch, put on the same radio station, and we're dancing at 6 o'clock at night on our porches. And so there was no way we would have done that before.
No, it's actually, we've been separated. Well, and you know me, I like some of the old masters, right? And going back to your thought here in a bit, James Allen in his book, As a Man Thinketh, right? And I love this quote. He said, the soul attracts that which it secretly harbors, that which it loves, and also that which it fears. It reaches the height of cherished aspirations and falls to the level of unchastened desires. And circumstances are the means by which the soul receives its own. So in other words, what we get is what we harbor, right? Which we secretly harbor. And what do most people secretly harbor are their fears, not their desires. You see where I am?
Yeah.
And what comes out is the circumstances are the means by which the soul receives its own. So if you're harboring fear,
you get it.
You get it. If you're harboring faith, you get it. Now, is it going to change circumstances? I mean, is it going to make COVID go away? No, but it makes me interact into the world differently right, than these people that are running on fear.
Yep. You got to break that fear cycle. Well, I say it far more simpler because I'm a Disney fan, okay? And, and I've got a brain injury. So this is how I work with things. I simplify it to the universe is our genie. When you say something out loud and you don't truly mean it, the genie hears what you say in your head and
Absolutely.
says, as you wish. So be
Yep.
careful what you're saying to yourself because
Yep.
the universe is listening.
And you've hit it right there. It is what we say to ourselves. Whether we're looking in the mirror in the morning, whether that's, whether we succeed or fail at something, how we respond to it, and that's where story comes in, right? And that's where a lot of that story we have is the story that runs in the background that we don't even know the story.
Yeah, we don't realize what we're really telling ourselves.
Yeah, and I went through a really interesting kind of a process called a journey here a couple months ago. And one of the things that came out was a memory that I had suppressed as a kid, as a 7-year-old. Came out is this whole thing about why I have this commitment thing, right? Like, I mean, it was just an interesting to really have this show up, but it was running in the background almost like an operating system, right? A computer operating system. We're on Zoom now on my computer. I can't see it operating in the background, but it's operating.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what happens with our story is it's running in the background. Those fears, those desires, it's all operating in the background. But how are you talking about it? Do you believe it? Do you, I remember when you were going to write the book, how long did it take you to write the book, right? Until you finally believed that you could write the book.
Well, it took me a while to write it, but once I wrote it, it only took me 2 weekends.
Yeah.
But to get myself to sit and do it, that took forever.
Yeah. And so think about this right now is as we emerge from this, and we will, right? We're going to emerge from this.
This too shall pass.
I don't know what it's going to look like. I have no idea what small business looks like. I have no idea what entrepreneurship looks like. We have no idea what the economy is going to look like. But I'm not worried about it because I believe it's going to work out like it's supposed to work out. And I think we're seeing people care for each other more now. I think we're seeing compassion come back. I think we're seeing those things that we've lost starting to come back into, people checking on neighbors, people, those kind of things. And like I said, my daughter, she won't let me go to the grocery store. So she's doing my grocery shopping for me and stuff. And I'm okay. I'll put a mask on and go to the store and disinfect my hands. I'm not worried about catching it. Right. But we're seeing that compassion start to come back to humanity, which is really a good thing.
And I always love to quote Byron Katie. I was exposed to Byron Katie by Paul Sheely again.
Paul Sheely, yep.
But one of the big quotes I like to say all the time is, there are 3 types of business in this world. There's my business, your business, or the other person's business, and God and the universe's business. And to sit and worry about what COVID is doing, we have no control over that. So why stress yourself out? But I can control who I am, what I do, and how I react to everything around it. I also am not afraid of, I'm not going to be fearful. I mean, I'm a cancer patient, right? So, but I'm not afraid of catching it, but I'll wear a mask because I don't want to expose anyone else. So right. For me, it's for what I can do for others. And then I stay home mostly. And it's just, how do you deal with what's going on around you? And it all comes back to what story is running in the back of your head and your sub-programming that you are not even aware is making your decisions. I mean, I've heard people online say, I don't care, I'm young, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. If I drop dead and I drop dead, well, then that's fine, that's your decision. But right. Also keep in mind what you're doing to other people that you are going to be in contact with that you care about. And so you've got to look at the bigger picture when it comes to this, you only live once mentality. You've got to realize you can control you. No one else can control you. But also we're part of a universal puzzle, a picture of everyone else. And we're all little pieces of puzzle right now. And we all now know that when the universe said, as you wish, you have free time, you will have downtime, and unplug the entire planet, we all realized that this illness that's shooting around doesn't care if we're black, white, yellow, green, orange, first class citizens, lower class citizens, first world country. It doesn't care.
No.
We're all human, and we're all part of this gigantic puzzle, and we're all in it together.
Yeah.
Be the best version of you.
Yeah. Well, you know, and again, the thing the opportunities had me do is bring out some of my older books, right? And so I love Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl. Awesome book. I've studied it a couple times. And one of the things he says is everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of human freedom to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances and to choose one's own way.
Yes.
And, you know, when you think about that quote, right, and you think about where his work came from was the prison camp, Auschwitz, right, and, you know, and that kind of work is everything was taken from him. Everything was taken from him except he figured out that you can't take away the greatest freedom.
Yes.
And that's me. That's my attitude, right? And it really is when you start to look at, and I think this is that time of, you know, we'll go back to the mind, right? What the conscious mind takes in, the other unconscious mind has no choice but to take in also. So you have to limit what you're reading. You got to watch, you know, why do people watch the news? And I'll click it on every once in a while to listen to I think it was Sunday morning I clicked it on for something. And it was all about why we didn't. It's like, it doesn't matter why we didn't. That's the past. We can't, there's going to be a time to do an after action review to figure out how we could have done things differently. But right now it's all the fear and blame game.
Yep.
Right? It's all fear, blame, and politics. And it doesn't do, you know, that doesn't do anything for me. Doesn't do anything for me. But again, it generates fear. And it generates panic, and it generates, you know, if people just step back and buy what you need at the grocery store. And can I share a short story?
Sure.
So 2 Sundays ago now, I don't know, I've lost track of time, but I woke up early with this voice saying I had to go to Sam's. And I'm like, well, I really don't need to go to Sam's. I'm okay. I got stuff. This was back really before, just as it was starting, right? But I thought, you know, one thing I've learned is when that voice talks, I tend to start listening, right? And so I got up, got dressed, went down there, and, you know, I've got the Plus membership. They let you in an hour early, but except on Sundays. They don't do that on Sundays. They open at 10. And so it was one of those cold, rainy Sundays here, you know, 3-4 weeks ago. So I'm in line. I was like number 5 or something in line and talking with people. And 2 things here is, you know, people coming up is, do you have toilet paper? Do you have, you know, asking the poor gal out there, did you get your thing of toilet paper? I'm thinking, I still haven't understand the toilet paper thing. I have no idea what this is, right? And so they were now limiting you could only get 2 packages of toilet paper and 2 packages of paper towel. Okay. So they were limiting you now, right? And as we were getting ready to go in, this younger gal came up and was talking to the gal from Sam's, wanting to know if they had baby wipes. And she goes, well, I can't tell you. I don't know. You're going to have to, you know, go in and see, but I don't know. She goes, well, I have a newborn and I've went to 7 stores and I can't find baby wipes. And I'm thinking, you know, when I grew up and my kids, it was called a washcloth and you washed it out and you wiped their butt and you know, I mean, whoop, can you say butt on here, right?
My program, you can do anything you want.
But, you know, so again, 2 points here is, one is, what have we taught our generation, right? Is, you know, wash the rag out, right? Diapers. We used to have diapers. You actually wash the diapers, not disposable. I mean, you know, right? Because you, right? But
I had my kids in Germany, so we did not have the disposable anythings.
Exactly.
I picked up my baby, washed them in the sink, dried them off, and then put a washable diaper on them, okay?
Right.
A cloth diaper.
But I went in and, they had you queued up and you went back, and I got back there and I got a thing of paper towels, and I got a thing of toilet paper. And all of a sudden I felt myself get caught up in this, maybe I should get another one. The fear, right, is, well, while I'm here, and I mean, one of those big things from Sam's toilet paper, I live by myself, right, but I said, well, give me another one. So I got another one. And then I did some other shopping and went around. As I was going to the checkout counter, I noticed this older couple in the back of the line. I mean, they were in the back of the line, and I knew by the time they got there was not going to be any left. And so I asked him, I said, are you guys here for like toilet paper? She says, yes, we've been here 3 days in a row and have left empty-handed because they can't get there early enough to get in and stuff. And so and I'm not saying this like, oh, look at Bob, how good he is or whatever, but I took that one extra toilet paper and I put it in their cart. And I said, here you go. Now, was the voice telling me to go to Sam's for me? Or was the voice telling me to go for, right? You know what I'm saying? But I didn't, there was other people that walking past me with two things of toilet paper, right? It's who do you choose to be, right? Not do. We've heard this enough. Who do you choose to be in these times of trying times? Who do you choose to be? And it's like you said, it's sitting out howling at the moon last night, right? There's some people that probably didn't do that because they were still afraid of what would people think if they saw me, or if those kind of things. And somewhere we got to let go of that, right? We've got to let go and be who we authentically are, and who we're designed to be, right? I know that was a sidetrack story, but you know how I get sometimes.
I love sidetrack stories. Well, for those of you who have tuned in today at MentalShift, Reach Your Full Potential, my friend Bob is on, Bob Kittridge, and he's from FocusPoint Solutions, and you can find him at FocusPointSolution.com. But I bet you if you find him on Facebook, he'd probably friend you because he's that kind of guy. He's like me. He's very friendly, very open, and we love to talk and we love to share. But he is one of the go-to people I use when I get in my own way. I talk often about getting out of your own way, and, it's not luck, get over yourself, that kind of thing. He helps me get over me. And I'm sure he can help you get over you.
And you've done that for me too,
Yes.
And so you can go to my Facebook page. I've got a business page, FocusPoint Solution. That's like the page, and we can interact for there, or send me an email, bob@FocusPointSolution.com.
And I'll have that information also on all the tagging at the beginning of this podcast.
Perfect.
And so we'll be able to find you again. But I really, really appreciate you taking time today and being with me. But I do have one request of you.
Okay.
You dropped some really cool Viktor Frankl quotes, but what is a bit of Bob wisdom that you'd like to leave with the audience?
Wow, you are dropping that on me. I think it's really the realization to know that no matter where you are, you always have the power to write the new story. You always have the power to write the new story. You don't have to live the story that you're living. And this is a perfect time for this. Like you said, there are people right now binge watching Netflix, or, I'm watching some of the things that people are watching. I'm like,
why?
Well, grab a great book, grab those things. Now's your time to do that, and figure out when you come out of this, where do you want to be? Who do you want to be? What do you want to do? Maybe and I know some of my clients, it's going to be a totally different shift for them. It's going to be, this is really, and I've been confronted. I'm an extrovert. So for me to be holed up now for, where are we, 3 weeks already, and not be able to go to events and not be able to give hugs and not be able to, that's been a challenge for me to really look at the part of being alone and being lonely.
There's a big difference.
There's a huge difference with that. But I think it is just really to understand that you have the power to write your story. And you have the power today to write the story for tomorrow.
Start a whole new chapter.
Start a whole new chapter.
I love it. That's great wisdom. I love it. Love it, love it, love it, love it. Well, because it is our chance. And what I've been telling people is, you know, pick up a good book. If you're not a reader, pick up a good audiobook. I mean, the libraries are, I mean, they approach those of us who have books and said, if you have a Kindle, can we have it?
Yeah.
I mean, they're just giving books away. So if you want that, do that, or find audiobooks, or better yet, find some meditation app and learn to get into your own head and start breaking down your story. So when you call Bob, when you write Bob and say, hey, I need in that blueprint for success thing that you were talking about with Michelle, you've got a one-up because you've got a couple of stories that you were working off in your head. And then when you get into that course, he dives you down a lot deeper and you do, whoa, okay, I thought it was A and B. There's an actual D in all this. Or in my case, an X, Y, and a Z. And it's mind-blowing what your brain does to cover up things, to keep you supposedly safe in a safe comfort zone. So definitely reach out to Bob.
And that's our job. That's the job of our mind. That's the job, is to keep us safe.
Yeah.
But sometimes safe also means being stuck.
In a comfort zone. Yes.
In that comfort zone. Yep.
But, so remember, Bob's wisdom. You can always start writing the next chapter, your next book. You are not stuck in whatever story you're in right now. If you don't like it, change it. You, as he says, have the pen. It's yours now. Write it. Have a fabulous, fabulous week, month, year, day, whatever it is when you find me, when you find this podcast, because it's up to you. You can control you, and it's all a choice. Look at my friend Bob. He's a good man, and he helps me through a lot of things, and he can help you. So reach out to Bob at FocusPointSolution.com or find him on Facebook with the same name, Focus Point Solution, and reach out. Go become the best version of you. Uncover the real you. Have a great week, and everyone. And Bob, thank you.
Thank you. Love you.
Love you.